Hi, I'm Karen. We're here at Montevilla Sewing Center, and today we're talking about the Pfaff Ambition 610. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of this machine. So to start with, over here we have where you plug in your power and your foot control, and over here we have your on-off switch. Up here we have the hand wheel, and the hand wheel, if you need to hand walk stitches, make sure you turn it towards you or counterclockwise. Over here we have the handle, nice strong sturdy handle that you can carry your machine with, and this is your lid. Inside you have your stitch chart with the numbers that you would type in right here to get to whatever stitch you want. Up here we have the bobbin winder spindle, the thread cutter for after you're done winding your bobbin, you can cut your thread right there. We have various thread guides. Right here we have the spool pin, and then up here is a little place where you put the auxiliary spool pin, and that would be for doing twin needle sewing. Of course, twin needle sewing looks just like that. And then we have your thread tension dial right here, and it's right on 4. 4 seems to be about right for most sewing applications for regular thread. Now, if you had thicker thread, you may need to adjust that. And then we have thread guides coming down in here. On the side here, we have the presser foot pressure dial. Now, when you turn that, it changes how tightly the presser foot pushes against your fabric. So if you're sewing something like a knit that tends to get stretched out easily and doesn't have good stretch recovery, then maybe a looser setting. But normally have it right there on N for normal. And then on the side, you have a thread cutter. So when you're done sewing, you can take your fabric out, cut your thread right there. In the back, we have the IDT, or the walking foot. It's like feed dogs on the top of your fabric. It's really good for sewing things that are like this, where you have a tendency to maybe the presser foot pushes your top fabric forward, whereas with the IDT engaged, you have both the feed dogs on the bottom and the IDT at the top, pulling both layers together. It's really nice also for matching plaids and stripes on a seam. And then when you take off your accessory tray, you have the nice free arm, which is great for doing hems of pants and jeans. And then in the back here, there's a switch for lowering your feed dogs. And that would be for like free motion quilting and stuff like that. And then your accessory tray itself has a front compartment and a back compartment, which is really handy for storing all your accessories. Over here, we have the threader. This is the needle threader, and in my threading video, I'll show you how to use this. And of course, we have the needle and the foot. Now, this is a quick change foot, and all you need to do to change that is you just press that down and take that right off like that. And under here, you have the feed dogs, and of course, the needle plate, and with the markings, so you can do a nice 5/8 inch seam allowance or whatever seam allowance you want. To put this back on, you just guide this right under here, and if you need to, you can lift up the presser foot a little bit, set that down right there, and it goes right back on. So that's a quick change foot. And here, of course, we have where you set your bobbin. The cover comes off like that, goes right back on like that. And then we have our reverse button. Now this works if you're sewing, if you're actively sewing, you push this and hold it, and it will go in reverse as long as you're holding it, and then you let it up and it goes forward again. If you stop and press this, it will keep going in reverse until you press it a second time. This is your start-stop button, which will work whether or not you have your foot control plugged in. So you can use this at any time. And then these are little indicator lights for various operations that the machine is doing. This is your tie-off button. And when this is activated, it gives you a 1 stitch back and forth tie off for like a couple stitches to give you a nice small like little knot, and it is a nice clean way to finish the ends of your seams. This is your needle up, needle down. So I'm going to show you when I press this, needle goes down, press it again, needle comes up. Now if I have this like this and I'm in the middle of sewing, it will stop with the needle down. All I would need to do is press that and it comes right back up again. So that's a nice little feature to have. That makes it so you don't have to turn your hand wheel and get it in just the right position. Okay, and then we have our operations buttons here. Now, briefly, I'll just tell you what this one means is if you had, say, a line of stars and you wanted to flip those over so the baseline is up on this side, you would just press that and it turns it over. So that's what that one does. And then over here we have the alternate button. And I'll just briefly tell you what that is. Actually, this one only has to do with the satin stitches, and it has to do with these two buttons here. So I'm going to choose a satin stitch number 69. Okay, with 69, if you push the alternate button, now the stitch length means that you can lengthen that like this up to from 1 up to 3, but it retains the same stitch density. So that's what that has to do with. Alternate, again, only has to do with the satin stitches 65 through 74. And notice I'm pushing just one button to get it back into straight stitch, the number 1, which is this one right here. And by the way, this is how your machine wakes up. It wakes up in stitch number 1, which is your straight stitch. So you can just turn on your machine and sit down and sew a seam. This here is your information button. What that tells you is for whatever stitch you've selected, it tells you what foot to use. And in this case, this is your regular 0A button, or 0A foot. I'll show you right there. It says 0A. And when you put these on, make sure that's right side up, because it is possible to put it the wrong way. So right side up like this. Also, this fits right around where the IDT would go. That up a little bit. There we go. Okay. And then it tells you to use that IDT. Now, IDT stands for something that I think the book tells you what it is, but it's your walking foot. There are some stitches that say not to use that walking foot. For instance, this one here, you see no walking foot. It says to use the 2A foot. So let's go back here. And then this is your recommended thread tension, so between 4 and 5. I have it right there on 4. We'll just leave it there. This is your settings. Now I'm going to get into settings on a different video, but basically you can make little changes in your settings to help your machine to do what it is you're going for. This is your stitch width, or in the case of a straight stitch, your needle position. So you can see I can move it from one side to the other. Okay, and when I have it out of default, when it's out of default, it's light letters on a dark background. Okay, this is your stitch length, so let's make it clear up to basting here, which is a really long stitch. Now notice both of those are not in default, so instead of trying to figure out what I did here, just reselect the stitch. It goes right back to default. So that's an easy way to get a stitch back into default. Okay, then of course this will also work like if you're doing a zigzag to make it wider or narrower. And this will make your stitch more dense or looser, depending on what you're going for. Again, if you want to get back into default, just reselect the stitch. Okay, and then this here has to do with the settings a lot, but it also can mean if you are going for, say, stitch 39 and you accidentally push 38, all you'd have to do is go down arrow and it goes, I went the wrong way, sorry, 39, there we go. And I wanted 38, I could type that in, or I could go backwards like this. There we go. Okay, so this goes through the stitches one by one like this. It's really, I think, easier just to look at the number that you want. Say I wanted 96, I just press that right there. Okay, but this also has to do, like if there's a button here that says, okay, to start stop, please lower foot control. To get out of that screen, just push the OK. And the OK is right there. And then this, obviously I was working with that before, but I will tell you, when you use that, make sure you press it right away, the number that you want. Say, for instance, I wanted 100. and I went 1, 0, 0. See, I'm pressing it too slow. So make sure you press 1, 0, 0, and that gets you into it. It waits a little bit between each digit because it's waiting for you to do your next digit if you wanted to. So for instance, I push this, it waits a little bit, then it gets into straight stitches. So just keep that in mind as you're using this to just work with it, just practice with it. It'll come really easily. Okay, and then this is your speed slider. What this does is it prevents you from sewing too quickly. And I find it's really useful if I'm doing something like a applique where I'm really trying to get around those corners very carefully. I don't want to speed ahead too fast. So this governs how quickly, the maximum speed that you can go using your foot control. Also, if you're doing free motion quilting, those of you who are quilters, you want to make sure you have a nice, even speed. So slowing this down to maybe half speed, and that way you can keep your foot all the way down on the pedal, or in the case of using your start-stop button, you don't have to worry about faster and slower. This gives you more control. So that is basic overview of this machine. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you have, give us a thumbs up. And if you have comments or questions, you can leave those in the area down below. We have lots of other videos here on our YouTube channel. So thanks for watching. See you later. Bye-bye.